Hello and welcome to the third video in this series of videos where I talk about low register long tone exercises. The plan with this series, and hopefully of future series as well, is that I will produce a PDF of exercises exploring different areas of saxophone playing. And these PDFs should in their own right be suitable and functional as sort of daily exercises and have some pointers on them in terms of what to work on, what to look at within the exercises. But the idea with them is that although the PDFs are fine on their own, I'm producing these videos that sort of accompany them and perhaps clarify some of the elements of each exercise. So the weather's quite miserable outside, and I do apologise if there's a little bit of sort of background rain noise. Hopefully it's not sort of too disruptive to the rest of the video. If you want to follow along with the worksheet, you can find the worksheet that I'm referring to on a Google Drive link in the description. Hopefully you should just be able to click that link and you should be able to just view the PDF in your browser. If not, I'm sure you can download it and print it off. If you can't, or if you have any problems, just let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can sort something out. So the exercise I'm talking about today is exercise number 3. In the previous exercises we've spoken about sort of purely working on tone and sound on single notes across a whole exercise. I've spoken about starting and ending notes. I've also done exercise 2 already, which was about dynamic contrast across single notes. So starting quietly, getting louder, starting loud, getting quietly, and how to start and finish those notes at the different dynamics. The third exercise here is delving slightly further into the musical element of playing and the musical element that we can work on with long tones, and that is vibrato. For anyone who's not familiar with vibrato, essentially it's a very small undulation on the pitch and the intensity of a note. So I'll just give you an example now of 3 different sounds. So the first is a straight note with no vibrato. So that was fine, it was just one note, and sometimes we may want to use a very pure straight tone like that for dramatic or musical effect. Other times we may want to use a little bit of vibrato, and how much you use very much depends on your interpretation of the music and also the type of music. But just for demonstration's sake, I'll show you a very wide vibrato that's probably a bit too fast. So this is a very extreme vibrato. As you can hear, that could give the music some real intensity to it. When we're actually playing music, we tend to sit somewhere in the middle. Usually, it's quite rare that we play with absolutely no vibrato, but it's also equally rare where we play with loads of very harsh vibrato. It's usually somewhere around. Can be more, can be less, and it really depends on the player and the music and your sort of artistic decision. If you're a beginner, vibrato may be a very new concept to you. You may have never really delved into it. And there are 2 ways that people do vibrato. One is with air, so that's going more like ha, and the other is with your jaw, in which you move your jaw up and down. Personally, I very rarely use an air vibrato. In fact, I'd say almost never in a performance have I used an air vibrato. I don't find it's as consistent and as easily controllable as a vibrato by moving the jaw very slightly. So I'm not going to cover that. If you do want to think about using an air vibrato, if it's something that if you're a more advanced player and you want to explore that sort of avenue, I'm sure there are plenty of videos on it online, especially flute players. Their vibrato is almost entirely based on air. If you want to use an air vibrato, don't watch this video, because I'm going to talk about a jaw vibrato, which I think is very controllable and can be used very tastefully. Essentially, all you're doing to create that variation in pitch and intensity is you're just moving your jaw a tiny bit. So I'm going to go close to the camera now. I'm hoping this isn't going to distort. So with no vibrato, it's like that. With lots of vibrato, I'm not sure if you can see that if the camera's picking it up, but essentially all I'm doing is I'm blowing, going just moving my jaw. The movement's not actually that big when you've got the saxophone in your mouth, but that's just a slight exaggeration to give you an idea. It's just moving the jaw up and down very slightly. It's hard to develop that fine motor control to start with, but over time it will start to feel much more natural and much more fluid. We've got two things that we can vary with vibrato. First is the width of the vibrato, and the second is the speed. So I can do a slow vibrato, which is very wide. And I think that's, I'm not sure I would use that much in actual music making. But then I can also make a narrow vibrato that's very slow as well. So that's the width. You can make it wider or narrower, and you can also alter the speed. So this is a fast vibrato that is very wide. And then a fast vibrato that's quite narrow. So those are the key aspects that you can work with. At first, if you're a beginner, your vibrato might be very wide because it's hard to make the movement small. So if you're a beginner, don't worry too much about how wide it is. Just think about developing control and stuff and that sort of thing. So there we go. We're nearly 10 minutes into recording, and I haven't even looked at the exercise yet. So exercise 3 is all about vibrato. All we've got is an F natural, 6 beats on, and then 2 beats rest, and then an E natural, 6 beats on, 2 beats rest, and then an E flat, again 6 beats on, 2 beats rest, and then 4 beats on a low D. The thing I've noted above the stave is the speed of the vibrato, and for this exercise it's essential that you have a metronome and also a tuner, a digital tuner that is, to tell you what pitch you're at and whether you're flat or if you're sharp. So the first thing to consider is the speed of the vibrato. I'm going to put a metronome on at 50 beats per minute. I recommend the range here is somewhere between 40 and 60. If you're a beginner and you can't hold on for 6 beats at 60 BPM, feel free to make the tempo a little bit faster. So perhaps up to sort of 70 or 80 BPM. I wouldn't go much faster than that because then the vibrato would become very tricky. And I've noted the subdivisions that the vibrato should be at over the notes. So over the F, I've got vibrato equals a quaver. Over the E, I've got vibrato equals a semiquaver. Over the E flat, vibrato equals a crotchet, which is very slow. And then over the D, I've written no vib, so no vibrato. I'm not worrying about dynamics at the moment. I'm just worrying about the vibrato speed. So it's actually a really hard exercise, I'll be entirely honest, especially at the very starts of the notes. And it's okay, I mean, I think you heard on the first note, on the first beat of the first note, I don't think I was really up to tempo with the vibrato. So it's important to listen to the click before you start a little bit and get a feel for how fast those subdivisions are. So that is how the exercise goes broadly. You want to be thinking about the subdivisions of the notes. So if we're doing quavers, semiquavers, or crotchets on their own. These are, I think, the hardest ones because it's so slow. You have to have so much fine control over your jaw. It's easy to make this sound a bit too wide. And then on the the D, there's no vibrato, so we just want to keep it as straight as we can. It's important to use a tuner as well, because if you're not careful, you might find that the pitch sways a little bit too far when you're doing vibrato, and all you want to do is to get the needle on the tuner to be going back and forth around the tone center. So there, my vibrato is actually dipping a little bit below the F, so I'm just going to push on a little bit. That's about right. And I only want the dip variation to be between 5 and 10 cents each side of the note. So when you look at a tuner, I don't know if I'm going to get told off for showing a digital tuner. Go on, focus, go on. There you go. So you can see there's 5 and 10, there's numbers each side of the middle there. So if I now play a B, oh, sharp? That's sharp, yeah. So you notice that B was around the center there. If I dip below by about 10 cents, you notice it goes minus 10 cents or minus 20 cents. It's important to try and keep the needle somewhere near the middle. I think 10 cents either way, if you're doing a fairly wide vibrato, is a good starting point. The narrower you can get it, the better, because it means you know the minimum amount of vibrato is smaller and smaller, and I find that's really good if you want to just add a tiny bit of shimmer to your sound. A very small marginal vibrato either side of the pitch can be really, really nice. I think Simon Haram is a great example of someone who has a great tone but also great controlled vibrato throughout. I've notated this strictly with sort of rhythmic subdivisions of the note, and I think this is a great way to practice and to learn vibrato. However, I'd advise thinking about vibrato in that way in music, because music is so expressive, and if you are sat there playing a piece and your vibrato is exactly at semiquavers, it becomes quite predictable and it does lose its character and its novelty, to be honest. You just have to listen to some Marcel Mule recordings. Marcel Mule is a fantastic player. Well, he was. I mean, he was very prominent in the 50s and 60s. Or was it 40s and 50s? I think it was 1940s and 50s, actually. And if you listen to some of his recordings, he has quite a wide vibrato, and it's very consistently sort of spaced out, and it's a unique sound, but I don't think I really like it. Rumour has it that Mule did teach vibrato to be very rhythmically strict and to sit within the tempo of a note or a beat or a piece of music. And there is utility to that, but I would really advise you, yes, study this vibrato exercise and use it as a tool to learn how to control the vibrato. But if you're then playing a piece of music, learn to be free with your use of vibrato and use it in a way that you find expressive and interesting. So I think that about covers it for using this study to learn vibrato. If you've got any questions, please do leave them in the comments. And as always with this project, I'm hoping it can be a bit of a conversation between me and you guys. I'm going to be creating these PDFs and these worksheets, but as time goes on, hopefully you guys, if you've got any feedback on them or any alterations or revisions that you think I should make, then let me know and I can sort of upload a newer version of each worksheet. And I'm hoping it's going to be an evolving project, and hopefully at some point we can basically have a collection of exercises and worksheets that are really fine-tuned and that explore all aspects of saxophone playing. So thanks very much for watching. If you found it helpful, please like, comment and subscribe. I noticed that about 96% of people viewing this channel aren't yet subscribed, so if you do like this, please do subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you get notified when I upload new videos. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.